let's just say you increase your budget by 20% and then your CPC goes up by 30%.
Basically, sometimes people are going in just watching something and not really actually understanding what is the objective, what is the purpose of the structure.
The first thing I would say is to start small and then...
Hey everyone, Dean Gravina here. Today's guest is someone who's made a serious mark in the world of Google Ads, especially if you've ever tried to run Google Ads and ended up on YouTube searching for help. He's the founder of Define Digital Academy, a self-confessed Google Ads nerd who's been creating and managing high-performing campaigns since 2010. He's built successful businesses off the back of this skill set and even more impressively, helped countless others do the same. His YouTube channel has over 100,000 subscribers and more than 420 videos, all laser focused on helping business owners master the art of Google Ads without the fluff. Whether you're just getting started or you're running campaigns that need serious help or a serious tune-up, this episode is going to be packed with gold. Aaron, great to have you here, man.
Oh, thanks, mate. It's a bit embarrassing when you hear all of that, but yeah, no, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and obviously a pleasure to spend some time with you on this call.
Yeah. Just before we get into the technical stuff, I want to take it back to the beginning. Like, why Google Ads?
Yeah, so I got into Google Ads when I started my own business. So we had a business, we had this crazy idea that you have when you're in your late 20s that we would start a villa resort in Bali. And we did it. It's probably where I lost a lot of my hair. So we bought some land over there. We needed some extra investors to get the project off the ground, hired a marketing agency, hired a real estate agency. And in the first 3 months, kind of the way it was structured, we had about 12 months. It's just a bit of a, feasibility to make sure we could make it work. After 3 months, we got no leads at all. Like I sort of say, I would have been happy with spammy leads. There was literally zero leads. And a friend of mine had a business at the time, and he said, "Hey, look, I'm running some Google Ads." He showed me the ropes, and then I started my first Google Ads campaign. And as they say, the rest is history. We started getting the leads in. We got enough sales to guarantee that first project. We then switched into the marketing side of it. And it wasn't until I was having a barbecue with a friend, another GM of mine, and he had a much larger hotel. And we worked out that I was saying to him, I said, I can't get my occupancy rates above 70%. Sorry, my booking rates above 70%. And he thought I meant occupancy, whereas I was actually talking about direct booking. I didn't know the industry average was 15% direct bookings at the time. Everything else was all agency bookings. So from there, I started to get freelancing clients. I then moved out from the hotel space into some e-commerce brands. And then since 2015, 2016, we moved back. And then, just been working in Google Ads. It's just because I love the problem solving of it, I guess, is probably what attracted me to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so you sort of got forced into, sort of necessity, right? Like most people, running agencies or running, you sort of just fell into it, and then the rest is, it just went from there.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So, and the thing that I just really loved is I just loved the ability that as a small business with a really small budget, we could compete in a highly competitive environment against, large brands and large businesses. And that's what still draws me to Google Ads. Out of all the other platforms, it's very much the one where I think regardless of the niche you're in, you can forge a path towards success and profit.
That's amazing. And can you tell me more about like how the academy started? Because obviously you're talking now about exactly how you fell into Google Ads, but where did you find this point? Obviously to start teaching pretty much you're on YouTube.
Definitely. So there's probably two main drivers of it. The first driver was out of my hands, and that was out of our old hands. There's a little thing that happened in the world a couple of years ago called COVID. Just before that hit, we were about to launch our own full service agency. So I'd been since 2016. I'd been white labeling with acting as head of digital, head of search for a lot of large agencies, and I'd always kind of wanted to start my own agency, but just at that time I was doing a lot of travel back and forth to Indonesia with what we're doing. And by 2020, everything had freed up. We had and I was ready to launch a full agency. And then that happened. But it took me it allowed me to sort of sit back and actually really have a look at what I really wanted to do, because I just thought that was the next logical path. I'd been a freelancer. I'd been, working in agencies, and I looked back and I saw a couple of things. The first thing on the business side for me, I was dealing with agency owners and I was seeing they were earning a lot more revenue, but in terms of profit, I was probably earning more than them just through my consulting clients because I had little to no overheads. But then the other thing that came from here is as well is that the driving force behind Define Digital Academy is the vast majority of my videos that I release are more about teaching business owners how to run Google Ads for themselves. And the reason for that is because I saw a gap and a need. Digital agencies are great. You're not going to hear me say digital agencies are bad. I love agencies. I think a lot of businesses, it's a smart model for them. But there's very, very few agencies that do marketing well for small businesses who are spending, their total marketing may only be $5,000. And, if they go like management and ad spend, if they go into the digital agency market, they just don't have the management fee that warrants the agency to spend enough time to get to know their business. And that's not a fault of the agency. It's just the pure mechanics of if you've only got a management fee of $1,000, you as an agency owner, you can't spend lots of time on these smaller clients. And for success with Google Ads, a core belief of mine is that you need two fields of knowledge. You need to know how the business works and you need to know how Google Ads works. Business owners know how their business works. So we go, well, if I can teach them how Google Ads works, they can then use Google Ads. And then once they scale enough, then they can go into the path of an agency or an in-house team. And I kind of also, so for me, Define Digital Academy, and I guess probably the reason for why it's grown so quickly, which really, really shocked me, was I knew there was such a big need for business owners who wanted a helping hand. I could relate to that because I was them, 10 years previously when I was launching my own business, staying awake at night going, how are we going to get the next sale? How are we going to get the next inquiry? So that's when I teach, that's what I try to bring across with I guess my ethos.
Yeah. And I didn't really plan this next question, but I guess from that point, so you sort of saw the problem there. And then when did you start actually getting traction with the channel?
Yeah, it only took 9 months. So that was what really shocked me. So I think it was like my 71st, because I committed to releasing 2 videos a month. Sorry, 2 videos a week. And like anyone who starts a YouTube channel or a podcast, no one listens to you and no one watches you for the first little while. It's like you in an echo chamber. And you get excited when you get like 100 views. I remember being excited when I got like 1,000 subscribers. I thought, geez, this is amazing. And then literally I released, we can get into it. Like I got very data and analytical. Like I spent a lot of time on my YouTube channel. Like it wasn't just posting. Like I basically viewed growing my YouTube channel as a Google Ads campaign. So I just went through, not saying paid spend, but I just went through and optimized, looked at the data, optimized. And then I did a big optimization session review of what was working, what was not working. And I came up with a new strategy and format for my thumbnails and videos. And I think the 5th one in that new format just exploded. We were going from, it was like straight line, like I can, in my YouTube studio, it's like flat line. And then when we were getting at one stage of the peak, I think it was like 1,500 to 2,000 new subscribers a week.
Wow.
So it was just growing really, really rapidly.
Yeah.
And then we've just kind of been maintaining and continuing the growth from there.
That's amazing. Yeah. And now that you've got, I don't know exactly the amount of people in the academy, but I'm assuming hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, like, what is one of the common mistakes or misunderstandings, basically people have when they first join your academy in terms of Google Ads? Is there something that either beginners or even intermediate people, they've all got a common like misconception or understanding about Google Ads?
So there's I can pretty much throw it down into, there's 2 reasons why people reach out. And the first reason is they can't get any conversions, or the second reason is they can't scale. So they're kind of at a bottleneck and they can't grow any further. For the first problem of they're not able to get any conversions, usually it's not a Google Ads problem. Like I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time, they've got a good enough campaign, they've got good enough ad copy in order that they should be getting some conversions. The reason it's not converting is the miscommunication between the user search term that they're targeting, their ad copy, and then the landing page. And it generally falls down on their landing page. And this could be for a myriad of reasons, everything from like just a poor design, but mostly it's around their messaging. Their messaging and their offer is not correct. That's the one reason. The second one is when it can't scale is because people will generally overcomplicate Google Ads. There's so many different voices, and I'm well aware that I'm one of those voices that are giving their view on how things work and what to do. And generally, you look at an account. So one of the first questions I ask anyone inside of my community, or if we're doing any sort of coaching with them, is I'll go, if they've got more than 2 or 3 campaigns in their account, I go, walk me through each campaign and tell me what's the reason for this campaign. What's your goal of setting this up? And many of the times you just hear, oh, I heard this and I thought I'd set it up, or I thought I'd give this a try. And that's the other big mistake that I see, is that people don't take a real strategic view to their account structure.
Yeah, wow. That's really, I mean, that was obviously going to be my few follow-up questions, but really, like, from what you're saying is, I think basically sometimes people are going in just watching something and not really actually understanding what is the objective, what is the purpose of the structure,
Yeah.
and they're just setting it up and just having fingers crossed.
Yeah, and it comes back to the business, and this is where it becomes important. It comes back to knowing the business, right? So, like, everyone has this thing that ROAS is the holy grail. An example that I give to everyone, we had a business that we were working with, and they had this figure that they wanted a 600% ROAS. And when I really started to question them, I go, why do you want that? And he couldn't articulate it. When we really drilled down to the business and what was the driver of their business, is they had an upfront product that was expensive, but the actual money in the business was the follow-up maintenance plan that went for 24 months after. And they were kind of locked into. So I said, well, that's crazy. What we want is we want a lower ROAS, higher volume, because the money is in the back end. So that's the other thing that I would just say too, is that when it's all about strategy, sometimes we can get caught up in the vanity metrics of conversion metrics and ROAS scores, and not take into account what drives the business. And you should. My biggest belief is you should design your Google Ads account and structure around what drives the business.
100%. And I love the fact that, yeah, you were speaking a lot about small business, because I think that's my niche, if you like. I have a few larger clients, but like, I'm really passionate about working with small business owners. And I think you've sort of answered this question, but this is more, if a small business owner is watching this, I have a lot of chats with small business owners that have either tried it themselves or worked with some of the biggest agencies here in Australia, in which that I've also worked for, and they say, Google Ads doesn't work. I've spent a bunch of money, I've hired the top agencies, I've got nothing from it. Like, I guess more specifically, say if that was a small business owner, how would you first, like, what would be the first sort of, or first 3 things, which I think you've sort of mentioned, that you would do to sort of fix the struggling campaign? And have you had any stories that you don't have to say brand names, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I would say is to start small and then grow. So one of the things I have been, I guess, really reframed over the last 12 months is a sort of an account structure, which I call the bottom-up funnel, which is essentially built for small businesses. It's also built for large businesses. I enacted on brands that are spending up to $750,000 a month. So it's not just, not purely for small business, but the beauty around it is that the vast majority of businesses will have a core, like, buying intent keywords. There are some little niches where you don't, like, you might be the first product to the market. Those type of things you probably need to lean on things like YouTube and Facebook for that. But the majority of businesses will have a underlying search term. So let's just think small businesses like a tax accountant. Tax accountants near me, there's a search terms around that. Where businesses will generally go wrong is they try to they try a little bit of everything. So when I'm talking to a business, if they've got a limited budget, what I basically say is, talk me through your current customers and where you're getting your current clients from, or where you're getting your current inquiries from. So let's just say I'm based in Brisbane. If you know that 80% of your inquiries are coming from the north side of Brisbane in about 5 or 6 suburbs, why would you do a Brisbane-wide campaign if you've got a limited budget? Focus on what's strong in your business now, build on that. And then also from there, if you've got 10 different services or 10 different products, what are the 1 or 2 that convert really, really well, or are kind of like lead-in products? You know what I mean? Like, I've worked with some I worked with a great example is I worked with a solar company, um, and solar keywords were really expensive, but what was cheaper was air conditioning. But the guy knew that if you get me into that house with air conditioning, I'll sell solar. So we went, we're not even advertising solar, we're advertising air conditioning. Then when we get that profitable, then we'll go into solar. So I think that's the one thing too is don't. And so the way that I look at that was within my first campaign with the Villa Resort in Bali. There was a massive search term called Seminyak Villas, and it had like everyone was going for it, but there was all of these longer tail keywords around, one bedroom pool villas in Seminyak, private pool butler. So what I kind of frame is too many small businesses try to win the war as opposed to focusing on individual battles. So I go, what are the battles that your budget we think we can win? Let's do that, and then you expand out from there. So that's the and then the other thing too is I would say is a lot of the time as well, business owners, small business owners, don't have a great landing page set up. So the one thing I would say there as well is rather than paying for an expensive agency, because most of it is got to do with messaging, just get your friends and your family members to go, what does this page say to you? And, does this page make sense to you? Does this heading make sense to you? I mean, there's even great tools like you can use ChatGPT now. Go into ChatGPT and say, find a couple of websites find a couple of teaching blogs or YouTube videos on what are the best principles for high converting landing pages, and then put your text in the landing page and ask ChatGPT to rewrite it for high converting to help with conversion. So there's a lot of easier ways to do it now, but that's the big way is if you're getting, as a small business owner, if you're getting relevant search terms and you're getting people to click on your ads and they're going to your website and you're not converting, the problem's not Google Ads. The problem would be around your messaging and your offer.
Wow, that's such an interesting. Didn't even actually. That's never actually come to mind for me. That obviously we talk about low hanging fruit opportunities and things like that around keywords, but it's really just amazing what you've just said in terms of like the solar and the air conditioning one. That's something that I've never really considered. Like, hey, why don't we go for something that's a little bit more, within your budget?
Yeah.
Build that up, use that cash flow for something to, to achieve what it is that you actually want. That's actually that's really that's a big golden nugget there. I think.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, and that's where it comes back to. And that's the problem and the disconnect between small businesses and agencies. And it's not that agencies don't know how to set up a Google Ads campaign. It's not that they don't know how to do a landing page. Where the disconnect comes in is it's quite labor intensive to know all of those things. So that's what I was sort of saying. When you can merge those two worlds together, it's because if you've got a high level of business knowledge and you can get together a good, messaging on your landing page, which you can do now through tools like ChatGPT and those things, you actually don't need the best Google Ads campaign. Let's be honest here. You just need a couple of keywords, some okay ad copy. As long as it's good enough to get traffic to your website that's somewhat relevant, it should be converting. Then, as you get better in those two worlds, obviously you can improve the click-through ratio and improve the conversion rates, and that's where optimization comes in. But I just recommend for small businesses, start small, start in your strong areas. Don't feel like you've got to take on the whole city or even the whole state. Start with your strong areas and go from there.
Off the cuff question, like a lot of, and can be answered really quickly, like business owners want to know, and I know it's variable depending on the industry, but like what do you think is your minimum daily budget, like just roughly that people should start with? Like
I get this question all the time, and I do it in reverse. And what I say is generally I want to be getting at least 10, ideally 20 clicks a day. And the reason for that is because when you break that out, you go, I'm getting at least 300 clicks a month if it's $10 a day. Sorry, if it's 10 clicks a day, which is then giving me enough impressions to do ad copy tests and all of those things. So generally what I look at is what's your baseline CPC and then times that by 10 at a bare minimum. If you can, times it by 20. So if your cost per click is $2 a day, if your average CPC is $2, you'd need a range of somewhere between $20 to $40. Is that my maths right? But yeah, you work back and just multiply it by 10 or 20.
Yeah. The other thing that I also do is like I look at, okay, like how much business do you actually want, and what are you
Yeah,
willing to pay for a lead? What are you willing to pay for a conversion? That's the other thing I think. But yeah, like obviously a lot of business, especially small, they say what's the minimum we can spend, and I
yeah,
think it's really about understanding. It's not about minimum spend. It's you can look at it two ways. You can do it the way you've just outlined.
yeah,
How many clicks do you want to achieve to site, or what is it that you're actually hoping to achieve? I think that's a really interesting one. I
yeah,
guess in terms of moving forward into the next question, obviously you work with both service based and ecom. I'd love to just get your approach on how do you actually structure the Google ad differently. I know from my opinion, from my understanding, you've got services mainly search, ecom mainly PMAX. I mean, you might think
yeah.
that's completely wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so generally I start my framework that I've really worked on. We've been testing across both ecom and service space from budgets from $1,000 all the way up to the big ones like 500, $750,000 a month.
Mm.
Is essentially what I more look at is for most businesses. I think the best model is a bottom up funnel. So for search, that would be for service based businesses, that would be search. For ecom, that would be search and shopping, a combination of search and shopping together. And what you want to be doing there is you want to be controlling that high quality, so that really high intent buying traffic. You want to be able to control that in those two types of campaigns. Service would be search, ecom would be search and shopping, a combination of those two. And the reason for that is because that's going to give you the quickest feedback loop on, your click through ratio, and your conversion metrics. So once we then build those out, that's when we start moving across to things like I'm a big believer in Performance Max. The only thing I would say for Performance Max for service-based industries is more and more it doesn't work well if you're not using offline conversions. So if you're just generating phone calls and form inquiries, generally you get a lot of spammy leads out there. There
Mm-hmm.
are always some little outliers that it doesn't, that it performs well. But generally, but the reason for that is, and this comes back to when I was talking about a confusing account structure,
Mm.
is I always think this about foundations. So if you can just think about foundations, it's not the best practice to be targeting the same keywords or the same search terms to the same audiences in the same locations in the same account. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to be running search and shopping and then you want to add in a Performance Max, the way that you can segment that out is that you can make sure that Performance Max is, when you introduce Performance Max, is only bidding for new customers. So what you're then doing from there is you're then, for me, I really believe that's why Performance Max was created. When you
Mm-hmm.
look at the structure of it, it's only maximize conversions, only maximize conversion value.
Mm.
All the documentation when Performance Max came out was that it's all about, it uses signals, but the strongest signal is what's converting. And let's find more conversions. So the way that you want to think about it, this is easy to explain now in a chat GPT world. If you think about your search and or your shopping campaigns become your prompts to what's working. And then you're giving prompts to Performance Max to go, this is the search terms that they're converting. So let's find similar audiences and similar keywords to these. And then from there, obviously, in both platforms, then you can then also add remarketing, and then things like video and that come into the mix. But I'm more about making sure that you don't have multiple campaigns targeting same keywords, same audiences, same locations at the same time.
Again, this is such an interesting conversation because, like, from a personal perspective, I watch people's YouTube videos. I've worked for some of the biggest agencies in Australia, and I've seen the structures of from when they've been scaled and when they're starting out. And to hear your perspective, I personally have to agree with you because I feel, and you leading into the next question, I feel personally with Google Ads, I've had the most success initially when I'm pulling manual levers, even going
Yeah,
as far as, and I know this is a controversial one for you, talking about manual CPC. I know this is a topic that you've covered. What's better? But I've personally found that, especially with a smaller budget, I don't think PMax is like the best thing to kick off with and just like Google do its thing. I think actually having control of the campaign, finding what's working, and then going to more automated strategy. I think that aligns with what you've just sort of
yeah.
said.
What you need to think about, especially with an underlying principle of AI, automated learning, whatever you want to put onto it, it finds the least path of resistance. All
Mm.
right. So if you can think about that. So then if you think about if you've got a search campaign and a Performance Max campaign in the same account, your search campaign might be running on maximize clicks, or it might be running on a target ROAS, or target CPA, whatever the situation is. But your PMax has a different bidding strategy. So then you can what I find over and over again is if I'm reviewing an account and it's got massive amounts of so it's got multiple Performance Max campaigns without those guardrails set up. What generally happens is they get locked into this band of a CPA or band of a ROAS where they can't really break free of. And in the most extreme case, I've seen an e-commerce brand scale from $50,000 a month up to $750,000 a month in ad spend, stuck between a ROAS band of up to 350%. They can't break it.
Wow.
So now they're reliant on this big ad spend, and the owner's worried because if they have a bad month, they've got a lot of investment there. And it comes back to he's got multiple campaigns fighting against each other, and it is quite complicated to pull it all back and unpeel it. I always think of this analogy. I was born in 1980, so I'm a child of the 90s cartoons, and there was this cartoon. I don't know if you remember. It's one of the.
I'm 96, so
okay. One of the ducks, Donald Duck or Daffy Duck, one of them, and he's in this boat, and he's like trying to like plug up all the holes in the boat, and every time he puts his fingers in one hole, another hole appears. That's the analogy that I see. That if you don't have real good structure in your Google Ads account, a set of optimizations that you do in this one campaign, the problem's just moved over to here. So then you fix that campaign, and then it goes back to there, and you can never break free of it. Now, when you get that right, we've got accounts where our Performance Max campaign is only converting at 3%, but our search and shopping campaigns are converting at 10 and 12%. And for me, that's the perfect structure. Performance Max is going out, finding the new type of clients, but then when those people come back in and they're completing I'm ready to search now, they're converting in search and shopping.
I think we've just blown up the internet, man. This is a very controversial topic because people are going to have their opinions on this.
Yeah. And look, for me, I would never ever say that anyone is the best in the world at Google Ads.
Of course.
Because it's all about, for me, I'm just going through what's working for me.
What works. It's all about what works.
Now, am I saying that other people can't have a strategy that doesn't work? No, I'm not saying that at all.
Of course.
But what I do say with my kind of methodology is that I've always been big on trying to remove confusion and give people some level of rules about it. So one of the other big rules I always talked about when I'm teaching people through is have a framework, as if you can think about it like this. The gold standard Google Ads structure should be one campaign with one ad group. Now, that will never happen. It won't happen. But if you can use that as a starting point, you've then got to come up with justifiable reasons for why you're adding in a secondary campaign. Now, you may want to add in a second search campaign, and it could be for a really valid reason that you want to be able to split your budgets between your marketing campaign in Sydney and your marketing campaign in Brisbane. Really, really valid reason. There's a lot of reasons why you may want to do that. Other businesses, that may not be a reason. They may want an Australian-wide campaign, but they want to be able to control the budgets by services or by products. So the first thing
I had an example on that. I had a client, they had weddings and corporate in the same ad group, and the wedding was sucking up the corporate. So would that be like a fair split?
It depends on, and this one comes back to the business. It depends on does the business, are they concerned whether they get leads on wedding or corporate, or do they want to really separate them out? And this is where I was saying we've had at one stage, I think it was 2 years ago, I had two brands, e-commerce brands selling the same product, different countries. So there was no competition there. And one of them, we had the segmentation built around locations. The other one had their segmentation built around brands, because it all came back to suppliers. So it came back to their business model. One of them was only selling their own products, so they just wanted to target it by locations. The other one was selling other people's products, so they had to factor in every quarter when their rates were renegotiated. So that's why I kind of say if you can come back to, and for me when it talks about reasons for different campaigns, for me there's four core reasons. Location, do you want to be able to control? So location and budget control. So do you want to be able to control your budgets by locations or products or services? So it's all about budget control. Because obviously for Google Ads, the core foundation is budgets are set at the campaign level. The next one is your cost or profit margins. So if you've got, this is especially true for service-based industries, if you've got a low search volume service that has a high volume, it's usually beneficial to put that into its separate campaign, especially if you're also advertising high volume but low ROAS or low profit margin services in the same account. Because what will happen is you might have a search term that might only have 200 searches a month, but one lead could generate $20,000-$30,000 of business, whereas you might have another service which has thousands and thousands of searches, but each one's only like $100 or $200. So profit volume. Results, like you said before, there are some cases sometimes with a wedding and corporate, you may want to pull it out. And then traffic audiences. And what you want to think about there when it comes to scaling a Google Ads account, people try to complicate this. But when you look at the levers, there's only two ways that you can scale an account. You either increase your budgets to spend more money where you're getting good results, or you reach out to colder traffic. And, you could reach out to colder traffic by moving away from search. So by adding video onto search or adding display onto search.
Yeah. And my next question, just briefly, in terms of scaling, when is the point that, okay, we're spending, let's pretend $1,000 a month, we now want to double. We want to double that. Like, could you give again, I know this is very hard to answer. You
I've got a framework for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Just,
okay.
A high level view.
So firstly, it did come back down to the business. Some businesses want to be more conservative. Other businesses want to be more aggressive with it. So, but come back to those two ways. I'd look at the first and the easiest way to scale is if you're running search and shopping, is to look at your search impression share and for shopping, your click share. If you've got a campaign that you're happy with the conversion metrics and you're at a search impression share at 20%, okay, it's time to scale. Because we know we can confidently get up to about 60 or 70% search impression share whilst maintaining those same conversion metrics. The only thing I'd say there is that when you do start to scale, do it in a smart way. So let's just say you're at $1,000 now and you want to get to $2,000 in your search campaign. Rather than just going from 1,000 to 2,000, I would do that in 20% increments. So go to an increase of 1,200
per week or per month.
Yeah, wait 1 or 2 weeks. Theoretically, you can do it every week. Is the official line that high level Google reps give. What I've found is that you generally in a month. So if you wanted to double from 1,000 to 2,000, I hate to give exact timeframes because
of course, yeah.
But what I would generally find is that in the first month, I could get away with 2 or 3 increases before I start to see before I go, I've just got to give this an extra 2 weeks, and then we go again. So generally, I'd say doubling a budget from 1,000 to 2,000, you'd be looking at a range of doing that somewhere over a 6 to 8 week period, because you'd have to do 5 budget increases. It may even be a 10-week period. So that's the first way to scale. You've got a low, so that's why for me, search impression share is such an important metric that a lot of people don't spend enough time looking at. Because for me, that's the metric on, am I ready to scale? The second way to do it is by reaching out to newer, colder audiences. So as we sort of said before, if you've got a functioning search and shopping campaign or a search campaign, an easy way to do it is just set up a Performance Max campaign, but with these 3 core guardrails in place. Get it to bid only for new customers. Get it to remove your brand, and then also have a conversion like campaign level conversions, which is probably more important for service based, where you'd go rather than focusing on forms inquiries, we're going to focus on offline conversions. And then then you can go in further and go, we're going to do video, we're going to do image and display.
Yeah, and in terms of the point where you get to a point in scaling, when is it that you have you ever been to a point that you need to pull back and you say, hey, like we're scaling, And
So
not for the reason that, like a business can't be able to, facilitate like within the platform that becomes,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's what I call sort of one of the factors you need to look at is what we would call CPC resistance. And what CPC resistance is for me is when you're using that first example of just increasing your budget. Let's just say you increase your budget by 20% and then your CPC goes up by 30%. Which would then affect your conversion metrics. So then scaling no longer becomes profitable just by increasing your budget. That's when you then go to that second option of we're going to reach out to colder traffic. Colder traffic will have a lower conversion rate, but it's also going to be a lot less expensive. So if the mathematics or the economics work out of that, that's the other way of going around it there.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one. And so we've just, had a quick chat about scaling a campaign, how to set up a campaign. Obviously heading towards the end of this, but you've also mentioned on one of your previous podcasts where you start to then look at, whilst you're scaling, what's happening on the actual website. And the example that you gave was that in one of your recent podcasts, the desktop functionality looked a lot better than the mobile. And then you guys actually did a live presentation and saw that the desktop was actually converting better. How often are you checking the experience itself on the website, and how often are you
Yeah,
doing it? Yeah, like optimizations there.
it's part of our regular optimization. So what we're basically looking at is, let's just say, for example, if it's a service-based industry, if we see we use a benchmark of 5%. Now, that's not a benchmark that we created. That's a benchmark from WordStream that they release their industry benchmarks. So I go straight away. If we're looking at an account and we're seeing two things: one, a low conversion rate, or we're starting to see on an active campaign that we're advertising, we're seeing their conversion rate starting to drop. If we're then going firstly into Google Ads and we're saying, look, we haven't really, there's nothing really changing there. We go through and have a look at the website. We go through everything. So we still use, you go through analytics, look at time and session, where people are going. And then we start testing things on the landing page and seeing what happens from there.
Yeah, is there like a core one that you always test, like say mobile desktop? Like, is there like a core split test that you run, or like a test, or something that
How do you
you
mean?
look at? Well, I guess yeah, like obviously in terms of like your desktop and like mobile, that's one thing you can look at. Like say, I don't know, when you're on page, like is there like a core test that you do? So say
Yeah,
we used to
yeah, it's probably not a test. It's probably more of a framework.
okay.
And this comes from this isn't my data. This is I did some work for a company. They're actually based in Melbourne, which I think is where you are, called TestMate. They did over 10,000 live user tests, and
Wow.
from those 10,000 live user tests, and these were actually user tests starting from the ad journey. So getting the real life user to click on the ad, then go to then go to the landing page, and there's 5 core elements. The first one
Yeah.
is clear messaging. So the first
Yeah.
thing we look at their headline and their sub headline. And some of this isn't new. It's their headline is all about are we generating one of two emotions, being fear of missing out or desire or problem solving. I know I gave 3 there, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
So you're looking at, is that headline not just keyword stuffed? Is that headline enticing the reader to read more? Then
Mm.
there's a sub headline. Is that not about the business, showing the business how good it is? Is that about the customer? So that headline, that top level, needs to be about the user, and it needs to be. So we had an example of this just the other week. Just yesterday. I've been working with this client that the keyword theme that people were coming through was different to the headline, and they kept saying, "Well, this was it was converting on Facebook," and we finally got them over the line. The only thing they changed on the website was the headline and the sub headline. Same image, same everything else. And already, like, I don't have the stats right here, but it's like significant. Like
Sure.
conversion rates have gone up significantly. I think cost per conversion came down by $25 in a week,
Wow.
from $125 to $100 in a week. So, and simple change. We tested one different headline. So that's the same. Clear messaging. Second thing is what we talk about, authority markers. This could be testimonials, this could be awards, this could be reviews. Then it's just simple and easy design. Like, it's sometimes the last thing you want to see is like a wall of text or a whole heap of really, really clear stock images. And then it's just like your offer and a simple checkout process. If you can get those 5 things right, you're well along the way. So there's not a test that we do. It's more of we just
structure.
Look through that. Structure. Does this make sense? Is this, do they have those 5 elements there?
Yeah, 100%. That's honestly amazing. And yeah, next question would be: we are heading now. I was on a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about entering into this AI world. Can you maybe talk just a little bit about how AI is now, obviously, with performance max conversions, we know it's there, but other stuff like, say, how we're now using AI to report, say, like the scripts, any scripts that are really helping you utilizing AI. Is there anything that you'd like to mention in terms of AI and Google Ads?
Yeah, I know you've had him on this podcast as well. I'm actually, and I'm unashamed to admit it, I'm actually going through Mike Rhodes's scripts course at the moment, and I think any professional in this space that isn't actively learning about scripts and using AI for reporting is probably going to get left behind really, really quickly. So, I think the biggest change is going to be, the other big encouragement I have to businesses right now is that if you're not investing in this video and image-based assets, this is the year to do it. The reason for that is everyone's been talking about all of the changes that's happening in Google Ads. And, some people are hating it. Some people, I'm talking everything from keyword match types to new types of campaigns, all of those things. People are missing the most important element of that, and that's why it is happening. And I think people are severely underestimating the massive change that is already happening and is going to be happening to Google and the way that people do Google searches. So Gemini 2.0, I don't know when this will go live. It may even be launched by then in about June or July this year. Gemini 2.0 is coming, which is going to be more of a ChatGPT experience than a Google search experience inside of Google search. It's going to be 1 or 2 ad placements in those answers. So if you're going from 4 ad placements at the top and 6 at the bottom to 2 ad placements in a conversation, what do you think that's going to do with CPCs?
We're in big trouble.
There's only one way to go. So that's why you need to go. That's why you need to go to video and display, so that you are reaching people. So there's 2 things that happen. So that when they're actually completing the search, they're already within your audiences. So you've got your smart bidding is going to help you and bid higher, or they're actually searching your brand name or your specific product title. So you're winning that search.
So the game is going to change very, very soon.
Yeah, I do and I don't. I hate to be that person that is doom and gloom and build up, but I do really, really think that practically, even local businesses, most businesses for the longest time in Google Ads could get away with just search campaigns. Now, maybe multiple search campaigns, but it was purely search. I think now you're going to need at least 3 different types of campaigns, being search, demand gen, and performance max, or a combination of those.
Well, to be honest with you, I think the game is completely changing. Even just with just recently, I just saw an article on shopping, Shopify and ChatGPT integration, and even the way personal brand is becoming. So I think obviously businesses now need to understand that Google Ads is a piece of the puzzle, and it's a part of a big picture. I think So I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on today.
My pleasure.
The last one for you is, where's the best place? I know people can find you everywhere, but where's the best place for people to find you? How can they get started with Define Digital Academy?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll give you a link. So probably the best way to get started is head obviously to definedigitalacademy.com. We've got a paid community which we run. We've also got courses that we run, and we also do some boutique coaching. I'll give you some access to a lot of our resources. We've got like our optimization checklist and our campaign setup guides. So if you're just starting out, that's probably the best place to start. If you've got a little bit more experience with Google Ads and you're wanting just some support and regular updates, the community would definitely be the one. I did a live call yesterday. We do live calls every week, and you've got access to not only the community feed, but I've actually just launched an AI avatar of me, which we're calling AI Aaron. So he is happy to accept your call 24/7. So
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll leave all the resources in the description. Thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
my pleasure, mate.